What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some more Separate Ways, the original Separate Ways content for you. And today we're going to be talking about a little controversy that's starting to stir up a little bit that I've seen in the past, but now that it's been basically confirmed, if you don't already know, Separate Ways is coming out next week, September 21st. But one thing I do want to say, and by the way, before we get into that, one thing I definitely am looking forward to is not having to see these terrible, ugly cutscenes from Separate Ways. One of the bad parts of the original Separate Ways. We don't have to see that anymore. But if you don't already know, I mentioned this, but I didn't have it in my video because I didn't know at the time. But I pretty much said that I'm pretty much assumed that this game is going to be paid DLC, which it is, but I didn't have a price point at the time until shortly afterwards. But basically, this content, this DLC for Separate Ways is going to cost $9.99. I know there's a few websites that haven't quite 100% confirmed this, but I see that price point all over the place. So let's just say, for argument's sake, it's going to be $9.99. Now, I've heard arguments all over the place saying, hey, we shouldn't have to pay for this. It should be free. It should have been there in the original one. Or I don't mind paying for it. Regardless of where you stand, I'm here to just give the facts of what is, what's not, as well as give my personal take on how I honestly feel. So let's get into some factual information. So I've always heard that, hey, this Separate Ways has been in Resident Evil 4 since the beginning. And it's easy to think that, because I'll be honest, I've thought that too for the longest time, but I keep kind of reminding myself that, the version I played was a PS2 version, which was my first ever Resident Evil game, just for argument's sake. But no, that was not the original version of Resident Evil 4. The original version was the GameCube version, which did not have Separate Ways. But a counter argument you can also say is, hey, ever since the GameCube version, just about every single Resident Evil 4 port has had Separate Ways in it. I think the only one I can think of off the top of my head, and let me know if I'm wrong, by the way, is the VR version on the Oculus. I don't think that had Separate Ways, but just about every other version had Separate Ways. So you can have that argument saying, hey, it's been in the majority of it, and I really can't argue against that. But here's my whole thing on the whole pricing controversy. But I want to give you my honest take on how I honestly feel. So, just a little food for thought. Back in the day, before Resident Evil 4 Remake or even Resident Evil 2 Remake was even a thing, I used to say this about the original Resident Evil 4 in terms of how it would do if it was come out in today's environment. I said, if Resident Evil 4 ever released in today's world, and they had the main game, they'd probably have all the other content like Mercenaries, Separate Ways, and Assignment Ada as probably part of like some season pass or something like that. And granted, it's not as egregious as I initially thought, but my point being is that this isn't really a surprise to me, and I guess that's why I just handle it a lot better than some people have. Because it's like I expected. Like, I'd been stunned if they just gave away for free. I knew they were never going to do that. So it's just, I guess, more just I've already accepted that a long time ago. So that's why it doesn't really bother me as much as it may bother some people. Once again, hey, what I've always said, you do what makes you happy. It's your money. You spend it how you want to. They can't force you. But let's look at the other side. Should it have been free? I mean, let's just be honest here. I don't know if we're the right people to ask that question, because we always give these companies. I'm not defending. If you watch a lot of my videos, I have my problems with Capcom as well as any company. I'm not going to just blindly say everything's great and just ignore everything, while at the same time just bash them nonstop. I try to be fair and unbiased as I possibly can. No one's perfect. But let's just be honest. I know you want to use the argument, it's been in there, and I get it, and I understand it, and I respect it. But the thing is, we as fans, we're just as guilty as these companies, because we will exploit things just as much as they will exploit us. And it's just a never-ending battle. And my point being is that, yeah, it could have been free. Some companies might give away free, some not. But I also look at it from the business standpoint of, hey, if they did give it away for free, they're going to be looking at it like, hey, we know they would have had enough people buying it. Hey, we could have sold it for a little bit and get something out of it. And I get it. I understand it. I understand both ways. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, and I respect both sides of the story. I don't think there's anyone wrong with it, and I get it. Some people are not going to be bothered by it like me, and some people are, and that's perfectly fine and reasonable, and I can understand it. As I said, it's your money. You got to do what you think you want to do. If you can't let everyone else influence you, do what makes you happy. But I get it, I understand it. But yeah, it just, at the end of the day, it is a business, and businesses want to make money, so they're gonna charge you for things, and they might not charge you initially, but they're gonna eventually walk in and get that. Because I remember, tell me you remember this. I remember back when Resident Evil 5 came out. You remember when they had mercenary mode for $5, that add-on? Yeah, I remember the big stink about that. So I've been a part of the whole DLC thing for a long time now, especially in Resident Evil. So it's just like, do I want to spend time arguing about it all day? I might make a comment on it, but at the end of the day, it's just, you just kind of expect it. My thing that really surprised me personally was the overall price of it. I expected the price to be, I'd say at least $20, if not more. But the fact that it's $10, I will admit, is shocking a little bit to me, but also a little surprising. It actually got me a little uneasy because, you see, one of my arguments I've used against some people who say, hey, it should have been free, and I have no problem with that. But my one thing, and if they don't do this when eventually we do play and find out next week, then I guess you got me there. In terms of, I don't mind paying for it as long as it's more substantial than the original Separate Ways. As I said, the original Separate Ways was 5 chapters. They weren't really long. There really wasn't a lot to do outside of it. And what I mean by, I know somebody might look at like length. We went long. Yeah, I want it longer. But just more things to do. Like, it wasn't like you just beat Resident Evil 4 remake and that was it. You had a lot of things challenges, a lot of things to unlock, multiple modes, bonus stuff. You didn't have a lot of that in the Separate Ways outside just beating the thing. Obviously, you also had the assignment Ada as well, so I'm wondering what they're going to do with that, as I have no idea. Because I wouldn't be too attested in terms of them combining elements of those two together to make one thing, as long as they bring back that costume from Assignment Ada, because as I said, Ada's Wong's most underrated outfit. But yeah, that's my whole thing, because I was expecting this to be like $20-some at least, and it's not. So I'm wondering, is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, because I'm wondering if it's as substantial as I hope it is. As I said, I'm not saying it has to be. I mean, I would love it to be, but I hope it's somewhat decent in length, and I hope there's a lot of replayability in terms of, you got to go back multiple times to unlock everything, and I'm still crossing my fingers hoping they have the PRL 412. I mean, that was a close second, other than not being able to play Separate Ways when I first got Resident Evil 4 Remake. As I said, Ada Wong is my favorite character, and I will never pass up a chance to play as Ada, but the PRL 412, I really hope that that's an unlockable, and I'm not going to lie, this guy made me shit myself. I heard it, but I didn't realize it was that close, and got really lucky there. But getting back on track here, long story short, I don't mind the $10. I was really surprised it was that low, but I also understand people are like, hey, it was there for the majority of all the Resident Evil 4 ports and stuff like that. Maybe not the original one, but it was there the majority of the time. It should have been free, and I get that, and I will still say I don't mind it as long as it's longer and more substantial than the original one. Now, if it's exactly like the original one, in terms of not just length, but just doesn't really do too much, then yeah, and trust me, you'll hear me firsthand talk about it, so there'll be no debate about that. But at the end of the day, we're going to find out next week. And hopefully that's a end of all those terrible rendered cutscenes. Oh God, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, we got a week to prepare for it, and I hope it's a very substantial content. I hope we get a lot of things, a lot of new things, a lot of homages, and just a lot of things to unlock and get through. But once again, that's my opinion. You know me, I respect everyone's opinion no matter what it is. But let me know down below, what's your whole take on the whole pricing thing? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it should have been free? Are you on that side of the fence? Do you think it should have been there since the majority of Resident Evil ports have had the Separate Ways? Are you someone who's fine with paying for it? And do you think $10 is right? Was it kind of like how I feel, like a surprise was that low? Or do you think it was going to be more expensive? Let me know down in the comment section. Are you also one of those people that think, hey, I don't mind paying for it as long as it is more substantial than the original one, since it seems like they put a lot of effort in the remake main campaign? They feel like they should put that same effort in this DLC. But nonetheless, that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you back on the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you all later. Peace.